Faced with long shoot days, tight schedules and the pressure to perform, working in the film industry can be incredibly stressful. But as bad as things might get on set, no actor would ever expect that the movie itself is out to murder them. Making a film is rarely a straightforward process, but certain productions can be connected to so many unexplained accidents, you have to wonder whether something more sinister was at work. From ghostly goings-on to the untimely deaths of cast and crew, some movies are so certainly cursed, their stories have gone down in Hollywood history. A globally cherished franchise, the Twilight Zone once thrilled audiences with its anthology of twisted otherworldly tales. So in 1983, 24 years after its first episode aired, Steven Spielberg gathered a team of renowned directors to help him transform the beloved TV show into a cinematic experience, one that would end in potentially the most tragic on-set incident ever committed to film. Split into 4 short stories with a different director at the helm of each, John Landis would oversee Time Out, the story of a racist office worker thrown back in time to experience the historical horrors endured by the people he so openly slurs. Starring Vic Morrow in the lead role and 2 child actors, a scene set in the Vietnam War would see Vic's character attempt to save the 2 children from American gunfire. During the shoot, cameramen hovered above in a helicopter, which Landis demanded fly lower to get the perfect shot. Trudging through a river surrounded by pyrotechnic blasts, Morrow held each of the children tightly under his arms. But as the helicopter continued to descend, an air mortar on set would completely blow off its tail rotor, sending it crashing to the ground. As it did, Morrow and one of the children were instantly decapitated by the main rotor blades, while the remaining child was crushed and killed by the falling wreckage. The families of those killed would go on to settle out of court with Spielberg and Landis for an undisclosed sum, with the movie releasing in cinemas to a lukewarm response. While some would no doubt argue that the incident was just negligence on John Landis's part, it seems that an incessant air of unease on set foreshadowed what was to come. Morrow in particular could sense that something awful was about to happen, with his final words before cameras started rolling being, "I should have asked for a stunt double." Another Spielberg movie and a classic of the horror genre, Poltergeist would ultimately be directed by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre's Tobe Hooper. The story of malevolent ghosts wreaking havoc in a family home, its success at the box office spawned 2 sequels, and while the franchise is most certainly popular on its own merit, it's also well known for the many mysterious accidents and even deaths it apparently caused. The first to fall victim to the Poltergeist curse was Dominique Dunne, the actress who portrayed the older sister of the Freeling family. One evening in 1982, her desperate ex-lover returned to her home in an attempt to convince her to get back together. She refused, and in the ensuing argument, he choked her into a coma. She died days later after being removed from life support, aged just 22. 6 years later, Heather O'Rourke, who played the youngest of the Freeling family, Carol Ann, would be second to die. Misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease early in life, an obstruction in Heather's bowels went on to cause septic shock. As toxins were released into her bloodstream, the associated symptoms were misattributed to flu, and at just 12 years old, she was eventually killed by her condition. During the filming of the first Poltergeist sequel, Julian Beck, who played evil preacher Kane, battled with stomach cancer. He passed away before the film's theatrical release. Finally, a near miss is perhaps the most intriguing Poltergeist-related incident. In 1992, Richard Lawson, who played Ryan in the original Poltergeist movie, boarded a plane to Cleveland. After being recognised by staff, he was bumped up to first class and moved to a different seat. Moments later, the plane attempted takeoff, but quickly crashed. 51 passengers were trapped in their seat, 27 of which died. One of the fatalities was sat in the same row as Lawson's original seat, meaning had he not been upgraded, he too would have met his fate. While no one really knows whether the Poltergeist series is truly cursed, surviving cast member JoBeth Williams remains convinced. After spending days on the set of the original movie filming in a pool she believed was full of plastic skeletons, she discovered that they were in fact real human remains. Rubber prop bones weren't common at the time, and it was much cheaper for the crew to source genuine ones than to make copies. Were the spirits of these bodies as vengeful as those in the movie? If so, it would seem that an attempt to save money could have cost 3 lives. Banned in several countries immediately upon release, William Friedkin's cinematic adaptation of The Exorcist is not only one of the most controversial films of all time, it's also one of the most cursed. Based on William Peter Blatty's famous novel and inspired by a supposed true story of demonic possession, the production suffered a series of major setbacks as a result of strange and unexplained incidents during and after filming. The first to occur was a major fire caused when a pigeon flew into a circuit box. Eerily, this burned the entire set to ashes, except for the room used for the exorcism scenes, which remained untouched. Ellen Burstyn, who played the mother of Linda Blair's possessed protagonist, was actually injured during a scene in which she's thrown to the ground by her demonic daughter. When a stunt coordinator pulled too violently on her wiring rig, she hit the ground with full force and screamed in agony. This was the take that would make it into the final film. Similar to Poltergeist, The Exorcist is also linked with its fair share of deaths. Linda Blair's grandfather died during filming, and Max von Sydow's brother died the day he stepped on set. Curiously, actors Jack McGowan and Vasiliki Maliaros, whose characters both die in the movie, passed away soon after shooting completed. When the movie released, it was met with outrage across the globe for its blasphemous themes. Linda Blair received so many death threats in the opening months that bodyguards had to be hired to escort her at all times. Cinemagoers believed the film itself to be possessed, and one woman was so scared during a screening that she passed out, fell over, and broke her jaw. She later sued Warner Brothers, claiming that subliminal messages on screen caused her to lose consciousness. Finally, in 1987, Mercedes McCambridge, who played the voice of the demon, would wake up to the news that her 46-year-old son had killed his entire family and himself while wearing a Halloween mask. One of the horror genre's most iconic franchises, The Exorcist made an impression in a multitude of ways, but it will forever be remembered as a film that not only brought evil to the big screen, it unleashed it onto the real world. Another undeniably blasphemous movie based on an undeniably blasphemous novel, Rosemary's Baby, is also undeniably cursed. Ira Levin's tale of a pregnant young woman giving birth to the devil, it was adapted for film by a young Roman Polanski, and after releasing to praise from critics, it didn't take long for death and despair to follow in its wake. Mere months after it hit theatres, the film's composer, Krzysztof Komeda, met his demise. It's uncertain exactly how events unfolded, but it is believed that he fell from a cliff while at a party. The blow he received to the head on impact knocked him into a coma from which he never recovered, dying in his home country of Poland the following year. As with The Exorcist, the cast and crew of Rosemary's Baby received their fair share of death threats. One of the most affected by these was producer William Castle, who suddenly fell ill with severe kidney stones. Delirious in hospital, he saw visions of Rosemary at his bedside and screamed at her to drop the knife he believed she was threatening him with. Though he managed to recover physically, his career was left in tatters and he never made another hit movie. Despite this, it would be Roman Polanski who was the worst affected of the survivors. After relocating to California soon before filming began, his then girlfriend, actress Sharon Tate, auditioned for the role of Rosemary. Despite her best efforts, Paramount saw promise in Mia Farrow, and Tate was relegated to an unnamed, uncredited background character in a party scene. It's rumoured that she became obsessed with the occult as a result of her involvement in the film, and if this is true, it makes what happened next all the more disturbing. By 1969, Sharon Tate had been married to Roman Polanski for some time and was heavily pregnant with their first child. On the night of August the 8th that year, as Tate and 4 friends slept in the Polanski home, Tex Watson and 3 female members of the Manson family broke in and brutally attacked them all with guns and knives. Tied up and forced to watch, Tate begged for the life of her unborn child. But that didn't stop Watson from stabbing her 16 times, killing the actress and extinguishing the life growing inside of her. It's safe to say that when Roman Polanski signed up to direct a film based on a woman giving birth to the devil, he never expected the devil to take away all of those dear to him. Famed martial artist Bruce Lee believed that he was cursed. Having premonitions of his own death, he predicted that he would die young, and the prophecy would be fulfilled when, aged just 32, he died from a freak allergic reaction caused by painkillers taken for a headache. But the curse didn't end there. While his son Brandon was just 8 years old when Bruce died, he followed in his father's footsteps and became a Hollywood action star, filming his 5th feature, The Crow, at the age of 28. Based on the comic book of the same name, The Crow follows Eric Driven, a murdered rock star resurrected to take revenge on the gang that killed him and his fiancée. While it would go on to become a pop culture phenomenon, the filming process was hindered by countless complications. Complications that would climax in death. Issues began as soon as Lee walked on set. On the first day of filming, a 27-year-old carpenter was severely burned all over his body when electric cables came into contact with the cherry picker he was working in. On the same day, an equipment truck mysteriously burst into flames, and a publicist working on the film was in a car collision. Later, a crew member fell through a roof, breaking several ribs. Another accidentally drove a screwdriver straight through his hand. A truck ploughed through the set, leaving a large portion of it ruined, and a series of storms destroyed even more. Then, 3 days before Brandon Lee was due to finish his scenes, these omens would come to an eerie conclusion. During a scene where Eric Driven returns home to find his fiancée being mercilessly beaten by thugs, he's shot in the stomach with a revolver as he enters the room. But as Brandon Lee took position, he never imagined that Michael Massey, the actor playing the gunman, would be using real bullets. An official autopsy of the accident details that, as the firearms technician wasn't on set for the sequence, no one noticed that the slug from a real bullet remained in the chamber of the gun from an earlier scene. While Massey actually fired a blank, the force generated by the explosion was enough to propel the slug outwards, hitting Lee in the abdomen and mortally wounding him. Rushed to hospital, doctors carried out several blood transfusions in an attempt to save his life, but he was pronounced dead just hours later. Now iconic, The Crow is as famous for its disturbing backstory as it is its content. The events that unfolded on the day of Brandon Lee's death shook the industry for decades to come, and while there have been many recent attempts to reboot the franchise, all of these have fallen through, leading many to believe that the curse still lingers. Though we may not be privy to most, accidents on movie sets aren't uncommon. But when so many dreadful occurrences accumulate in a single place at a single time, what would otherwise be considered a series of unfortunate events could indeed be perceived as infernal intervention. Whatever the cause, so shrouded in death and destruction are these damned productions, they act as irrefutable proof that even movies themselves can be cult killers. If you liked this video and want to learn more about the murderers behind your favourite movies, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the Cult Fiction channel. Until next time, just remember that most cult fiction is a whole lot closer to fact than you might like to think.